In this video, I'll be discussing how to get started in landscape photography for under $1,000 Australian. Throughout the video, I'll show examples of photos taken with the setup shown. And there is one unexpected item that takes the budget to $1,015 Australian, but I think it's worth the extra $15 over budget. Okay, so the camera I'm recommending you buy is the EOS 200D, which I'm shooting on right now, and I got mine for $618 on eBay. The most recent one I've seen on eBay is $625, and I'll put a photo of it on screen now so you can see it. In my opinion, this is the best beginner camera because it's cheap and easy to use. It also has a standard EF mount, which gives you lots of lens options, and an SD card slot so you can use whatever SD card you have lying around. You don't have to buy another one. It shoots 24 megapixels, which in my opinion is the best option for beginners because it's enough resolution so you can crop in post comfortably, but not so much that you're sacrificing on ISO performance. Unfortunately, it only has one SD card slot. That means if your SD card breaks, you lose the photos on it. Now this is a photography video, but in video it does 1080p up to 60 FPS with dual pixel autofocus and no crop. It also does 24 FPS, which for some reason Canon has been omitting from more recent cameras such as the 200D Mark II. However, they added it in a firmware update. I personally believe that for beginners, who this camera is targeted at, 4K, 6K, 8K or even 12K are unnecessary and over the top because you won't be able to take full advantage of it. This camera comes with a kit lens, but I don't recommend using it due to the poor optical quality. The kit lens is the EFS 18-55 IS-STM. It has an APS-C size sensor, which means it can support the EFS lenses which are smaller and cheaper, which is good for beginners. However, that does mean you're getting a 1.6 times crop on the sensor and whatever focal length and aperture you have, and the smaller the sensor, the worse the ISO performance is. Now let's move on to the first lens, the EFS 24-2.8. I don't actually have this lens, I have the older full frame version with slower autofocus that's a lot more expensive, but I will be getting the APS-C version that's a lot smaller and with a better autofocus soon. This is a more traditional lens that has a wider angle used for taking landscapes, and a lot of photos are taken around this focal length. The full frame equivalent is 38.8mm. It costs $270 Australian, which means it's a great price for beginners. Here are the sample images for the 24-2.8 lens. So, this is the sunset. So this is the original, and then that's what I edited it to. So, this is what it looked like originally. And then I edited it to look like this because again, it's a RAW file. Then here's the original. For this shot, I overexposed a lot of these photos. And finally, here's one last shot of all these rocks. Okay, back to the video. What's your favorite focal length for landscape photography? Mine is 85mm, which is outside the norm. However, I found it more natural to shoot with a tighter focal length since the beginning. So I just stuck with it and kept taking photos at 80 or so millimeters on the 200D. We're getting to that lens now, by the way. Lens 2 is the Yongnuo 51.8 EF version. You have been seeing that lens this whole video at f2.8, however the lens goes all the way down to f1.8 if you want more low light performance or a blurrier background. This lens is on the 200D for this video, which is the camera I recommended earlier, and because of the APS-C sensor, it has an 80mm field of view. As I mentioned before, I like the look of 85mm landscapes, so this is the closest I could get on an APS-C camera. At only $100 Australian, which is half the price of the Canon version of this lens, it creates an amazing image that is quite sharp and detailed. However, this focal length is not traditionally used for landscapes because most people prefer a wider field of view. If it was adapted to another APS-C camera, it would be a focal length of 75mm full frame equivalent because Canon's APS-C cameras are 1.6 times crop and everyone else's are 1.5 times crop. Okay, so here are the sample shots of the 51.8 lens. So you can see this is a seascape shot. Again, I do like seascapes a lot. Then we move back to this other seascape because I really do like this seascape. Here's the original, and here's the edit. Then here you can see just like a different version of that shot. Then we move along to another shot here, focusing on the wave this time rather than on the rocks. Then we have more depthy shot with a all-in focus and some nice clouds and some background and the mountains in the background. The extra item I mentioned earlier are bongo ties. Bongo ties take the budget from $1,000 to $1,015. However, they are worth the extra cost because they have so many uses. They're $2 each and come in a pack of 10, so it's $20 all up. These are great for keeping you organized and not having cables all over the place tangled up. They also have many other uses, but 3 examples I use them for are tying up my camera straps when they're in storage and on the tripod so that way they don't get in the way, keeping cables organized in my camera bag, and maintaining my shelves so they don't become a mess of cables.